Talk when you do that.
You do the banter better.
Yeah, I do. Okay. All right. I'm Kid the Maniac. This is Pathos Prime. We're Vitamin H, and basically we go places and do panels.
We go places, we do panels. We've got 4 panels showing at this con.
Right now we have a Kurosawa at 8 p.m. in this room again. We're going to have hilarious hentai dubs, which will be showing.
That's our flagship panel.
Yeah, that's going to be showing you some of the very funny, over-the-top moments from all of these, terrible, terrible porno dubs.
That's kind of how we got the name Vitamin H.
Yeah, and then tomorrow, is that at 4 o'clock? Is Tuesday?
I have no idea when. No, that's later.
I'm pretty sure it's 4 p.m.
Is it 4?
Yeah. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. we have Tunes That Go Bump in the Night. That's going to be our horror anime panel. There's going to be tons of blood, tons of guts. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be in main events. We actually got main events.
Yeah. And then at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, we're going to be doing Nihon
If
Eiga.
any of you are still awake at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning.
Yeah, we're going to be doing Nihon Eiga, movies to blow your mind.
Japanese cinema.
It's going to be an hour of weirdness. It's just going to be pure madness.
We selected, we brought a selection of films for that one that are all fairly bizarre in their own way.
Yeah.
Time check.
All right. I still think you should have a mic. 3:57. You want to just
Want to just get started?
roll out. Do it. Don't go asking people to think you're nuts.
Hey, how about I turn my clicker on? There we go.
Oh, you down more the mic? Take the mic.
You're friendly. I'm fine. You can have the mic. Anyway, welcome to Seven Samurai and Beyond, the works of Akira Kurosawa. Thank you for coming. Honestly, I didn't think anyone was going to come, seeing as we're up against so much good stuff going on right now. Here's our disclaimer. We don't own anything we're about to show you, and all opinions are ours. Usually we also give you information on where to buy these films legally, but we didn't get a chance to do that this one.
And flippity flappity flu, don't sue us.
Flippity flappity flu, don't sue us, and buy all your movies legally. First of all, just to make sure everyone knows, Akira Kurosawa is not Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball. I thought I'd bring that up, seeing as I had a guy at work tell me, "Oh wow, I didn't know the guy who did Dragon Ball did Seven Samurai too." But that's the man, Akira Kurosawa. Without him, Japanese cinema as we know it would not exist.
And a lot of, American cinema as
And a
we
lot
know
of
it would not
American cinema.
exist.
If you want to know who he's influenced, name a director.
We're going to get into that later, though.
That's little Akira-kun.
As a baby.
I think he's like 4 or 5 in that picture. He came from a very wealthy family. His, I want to say, grandfather was a samurai in service of the emperor. Now, the boy over here is actually Kurosawa's older brother, Keigo, who was a big influence in Akira Kurosawa's life. He actually went into the film industry before Kurosawa, got into silent films.
But when silent films started to decline.
Yeah, then when silent films began to decline in the late 20s, Keigo was left without work and actually committed suicide. But Akira followed his brother into the film industry, starting off as a painter, and then eventually becoming an assistant director working for what would become Toho Studios. He was seen as having an eye for direction, and he was given the opportunity to direct his first feature film in 1943, Judo Saga.
And this is the first film we have a clip of.
Yeah, also known as Sugata Sanshiro. That's one where you'll often hear it in both Japanese and English. All our titles have the English title, but you'll often hear it called Sugata Sanshiro. It's been remade countless times. Now, his first film was very heavily censored by the Japanese pre-war administration. It was considered very Western in style, which was tantamount to a charge of treason at the time, and almost never got released. But we do have a clip of it.
私もお前の働きは見た。強い。全く強くなった。お前の実力は今や私の上かもしれん。しかしなさ、お前の柔道と私の柔道とは天地の隔たりがある。気がつくか。お前は人間の道を知らん。人間の道を知らん者に柔道を教えるのは、これは気違いに刃物を渡せるのに等しい。先生、人間の道を知ってるはそう言え。一斉は目的もない。裏に回るのは人間の道か。人間の道とはこれこそ天地自然の真理である。この真理によってのみ人間は知らはし守る。これが全ての道の究極の一点だ。柔道をしておらせると姿、お前はこの一点も見せないと。いいえ、先生。先生の命令ならば今でも僕は死ねます。どうだ。いいえ、死ねます。どうだ。いつプライドに出しとった。お前らとも真の言うとは信じません。死ねます。
Honestly, how many times have you seen a scene like that in movies and anime and lots of features that have come since then? Fun fact, after the success of Sagata Sanshiro in Japan, the Japanese officials essentially ordered him to direct a sequel, which is the very heavily propagandistic Judo Saga 2, which is arguably one of Kurosawa's worst films, and it's kind of hilarious if you ever get a chance to see it. That boy Sugata that you saw essentially goes out and punches the living crap out of America.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
After that, he actually directed a propaganda film called The Most Beautiful, featuring female factory workers, because Japan had their Rosie the Riveters too. And in this one you see...
this was definitely kind of the beginning of...
this is where you really started to notice Kurosawa's often extreme directing methods. He actually made all his actresses live in a factory during the filming of this, and refused to let them call each other by their real names. They had to use their factory names, they had to dress in factory clothes, they actually produced some... I can't remember what kind of... some
I think
sort
it
of
was a textile
factory.
Yeah.
After that, he did then Tread on the Tiger's Tail, which was based on a 14th century no drama. This one was straight up banned by the Japanese authorities, but then Japan lost the war and surrendered. So he submitted to the American authorities, who also banned it. The movie was eventually released in 1952, but after this debacle, Kurosawa kind of learned to play the game and made a movie talking crap about the pre-war regime. No Regrets for Our Youth, which was a smash hit in Japan, Wagaseisha Nikushinashi. And in fact, blank Nikushinashi became a catchphrase in Japan during the late 40s. It's about a boy who's going to high school, during the war, talking about how he hears all these horrible things Japan has been doing, and he doesn't want to go off to die. But after this one is his next really significant work, which is Drunken Angel.
And this is a fantastic movie. It's basically these two big male egos just bouncing off each other and kind of getting up in each other's faces.
Now, the two actors that you're going to see here, one, I cannot remember the life of me his name, but you're going to see a lot of him later. And then the other one, the young guy who he's going to be talking to, is Toshiro Mifune. This one was heavily censored by the American occupation. There were about 15 to 30 minutes of movie that had been criticizing elements of American culture that had been seeping into Japan in the late 40s. And we have a clip of this. Yeah, that's Mifune right there. He's kind of hard to recognize in this film because he usually has a beard. after Drunken Angel, Kurosawa realized he had a star on his hands with Toshiro Mifune. You'll see he often uses the same actors over and over again, but during this period of time, these 15 years, which were undoubtedly the peak of Kurosawa's career, during those 15 years, he created 15 films starring Toshiro Mifune. Mifune himself appeared in over 150 films. He went on to continue, he went into films in Europe, and then
In America.
he became well known in America, starring in Shogun in the 1980s as not Ieyasu Tokugawa. He was known for being insane, but then again, so was Kurosawa. So they worked really well together. This is something Kurosawa said. He also said that where most actors would take 6 feet to make a scene, Mifune only needed 3. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I'm sure it sounds...
I'm sure it's very deep.
I'm sure it's very deep. Now, the first film that really drew a lot of people's notice was Rashomon. Now, this is widely regarded as Kurosawa's breakout film. This is the film that it's one of his first historical epics. It tells the same story from 4 different points of view, and this is the first film that ever actually did that. And it was released to modest success in Japan, but to everyone's surprise, it started winning awards in film festivals in France and Germany and even in the United States. And only 5 years after World War II ended, kind of alerted the world to the fact that Japan had a film industry. Now we do have a clip from this. This film has been gorgeously remastered, so you'll see this clip is a bit higher quality. Now the guy sitting on the floor right here is the doctor from Drunken Angel. And the guy playing the priest, you'll see him later too.
Who's that? No. 不思議な話見たことない。だから話してみなよ。いいやんばいにここには物知りらしい坊さんもいることだ。いや、物知りで名高い清水寺の公認上人でもおそらくそんな不思議な話はご存じあるまい。でお前さんもその不思議な話というのを知ってるの？その人と二人でこの目でこの耳で聞いてきたばかりだ。どこで？ケビ石の庭でだ。ケビ石？人が一人殺されたんだ。なんで人の一人や二人この羅生門の牢の上へ上がってみろ。引き止めてのない死骸がいつでもゴロゴロ転がってら。そうだ。戦、地震、筋風、火事、飢饉、手荒み、来る年も災いばかりだ。その上盗賊の群れが津波のように嵐の穴の夜はない。わしもこの目で虫けらのように死んだり殺されたりしていく人をどのくらい見たかわからない。しかし今日のような恐ろしい話は初めてだ。そうだ、恐ろしい話だ。今日という今日は人の心が信じられなくなりそうだ。これは盗賊よりも
手紙よりも飢饉や火事や戦よりも恐ろしい。そう3日前の昼下がりでした。場所は関山から山科へ参ろうという途中でございます。虫を垂れておりましたから顔は分かりません。男は太刀も帯びておりますれば弓矢も携えておりました。あの男がこのような変わり果てた姿になろうとは夢にも思いませんでしたが、人間の命などは朝露のように儚いものでございます。
And that's all I'm going to tell you about Rashomon. You'll notice I didn't actually put any of Toshiro Mifune's scenes in that clip because all of Toshiro Mifune's scenes are glorious. Find this movie, watch it. It's fantastic. It's actually done really well to stand up to the test of time, as has this next movie. Let me check that. Ikiru. Now, this one, it's not a
samurai movie.
It's not a samurai movie. It's about a fairly pitiful man who has done absolutely nothing with his life at all.
And then he finds out he's gonna die.
Then he finds out he only has 6 months to live and decides to do something with those 6 months. And when it comes up, you'll see the guy is once again the doctor from Drunken Angel, who I need to find out his name. What about him again?
私が僕を産んで
There is nothing sadder than a sad Japanese man.
Now, there are a lot of people. Now, that movie is another one that's really stood up to the test of time. It's still fantastic even today. There are a lot of people who will actually say it's his best movie, even though it's not his most well known. His most well known is the one we're going to talk about next, which is, of course, Seven Samurai.
And now we start getting into the real actiony stuff.
There's really not much I can say about Seven Samurai that hasn't already been said. It's a masterpiece, it's a classic, it's 4.5 hours long.
And somehow manages to still be interesting
It's
after 4.5 hours.
It's 4.5 hours long, and you want to sit there and watch the whole 4.5 hours. It's been remade how many times? I mean, there was Magnificent Seven, which is an American Western, Samurai 7, the very bizarre anime series.
And some argue A Bug's Life.
Some argue A Bug's Life draws very heavily from Seven Samurai. But we have a clip of this. First thing you'll see is going to be Toshiro Mifune, once again.
Being awesome.
And the guy who plays the doctor's in this one too. But he plays a very different character. And I didn't recognize him.
And the priest guy.
Yeah, and they got Priest from Rashomon's in this too. But there's me coming back sitting on the fence. The guy at the top right, that's the priest from Rashomon. Kind of recognized him.
これはどういうわけかな。おい、どうしたの？お侍さんが来たぞ。とにかく爺様のところへ。爺様？この村のことはみんな爺様が。つまり長老だ。長老に配列か。ありがたい幸せだな。参ろう。
Essentially the leader of the samurai is once again the doctor, and then the guy from Ikiru. So it's a very good character.
雨が降っても日が照っても風が吹いても心配ばかりしない。つまりビクビクするよりもがね、ちょうどこともただビクビクしているだけのことだね。
しかし老人、村の者は我々の何を恐れているのかな。いや、そんなことで我々に何をしろというのだ。では番儀を打ったのは誰だ。
if Drunken Angel made Kurosawa famous and Rashomon made him a superstar, then Seven Samurai is what made him a legend. And he essentially spent the next 10 years doing anything he wanted. Mostly
other samurai movies.
Mostly going with what the formula that had made him famous, other samurai movies. One including Throne of Blood, which was a complete remake of Shakespeare's Macbeth, with Toshiro Mifune as not Macbeth. I've included this one largely because of Mifune's death scene, which I'm about to show you. One of the best scenes that's ever been shot. It's almost infamous. And just to go to show you how insane both Mifune and Kurosawa were, they both insisted on the use of real arrows in this scene because they thought it would make Mifune's fear more believable.
So you can genuinely see him crapping himself.
And that was one of the greatest death scenes ever in cinema. Now, where that one was Kurosawa's remake, Kurosawa's films have themselves been remade. Usually they get remade in the United States as Westerns. Because if you're going to do something about American history, let's face it, there aren't a lot of time periods to choose from. But this next film we're going to talk about was actually remade as a sci-fi film. You may have heard of it. It was called Star Wars. George Lucas, who is a epic level Japanophile, has said that the first draft of Star Wars was essentially a word-for-word remake of The Hidden Fortress.
And was going to have Mifune as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Toshio Mifune was actually George Lucas's first choice as the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
But in a way, it's pretty good that they didn't cast Mifune because
at the time he spoke no English
and
at all.
every English role he did was phonetical.
Yeah, he had to do a crash course in English for Shogun, and even still ended up doing most of his lines phonetically. So Mifune turned the role of Star Wars down largely because he was getting ready for Shogun. So Lucas had to settle for, Sir Alec Guinness instead. Had to settle for Sir Alec Guinness. We don't have a clip of this one. This is another one. I haven't seen all of this one, but essentially the main characters in this one are not C-3PO and not R2-D2, and it's kind of.
Luke.
Yeah, there's no Luke, there's no Han. Those were essentially, according to Lucas, added at the behest of directors who didn't think anyone would take a 50-year-old person seriously as the main character of an action film. The next film we're going to talk about, when the 60s came along, Kurosawa was getting more into his groove and started going with a more stylistic, taking a lot of elements from American film, and he produced Yojimbo.
Which is honestly probably one of my favorites on this list.
Well, of course, now you'll see some scenes in here. This was considered extremely graphic and gory for the time. Which would probably be rated PG today. But here's the clip. And once again, you'll see Mifune. You can tell he's older, and you can tell he's still badass, because Mifune is always badass.
さっきかね。どうした？こんとこ商売上がったりでね。何にもねえで、飯も止めてえが。Come on。実は親父、分かってるよ。これがねえんだろ。しかしこの町で少し暴れて借りを返す。やめてくれ！切ったはったらもうたくさんだ。飯ぐらいただで貸せるから、とっととこの町から出てってくれ。すまん。まだ話しなかった。隣の奥屋で近頃この町で経験のこいつばっかり。看護婦は毎日飛ぶように言ってる。バクチューチなんていねえのこしたかさ。まあ一つ宿場に親分一人ってんだから我慢。一つ宿場に親分二人ってこともういけねえ。儲けんな看護婦屋だけで。動けよっしゃ！どいつもこいつも。とにかくこの宿場はもうおしまいだ。分かったかねおさんめ。こんなところにいるとこの特権に当てられてろくなことにはなんねえ。早いとこ飯食って逃げられたね。
飯はやめだ。酒を食え。この町は気に入った。腰を据えるぞ。
何を俺があのこと言ったのがまだ分かんねえのか。
よく分かった。だから俺はここに残る。まあ聞けよ親父。今この町では人を切ればとかねえんだ。しかもこの町が叩き切った方がいいように違いねえ。
なんでさっきは3品じゃねえか。またぞ何の用で。
まったく可愛らしい面してんなってめえたちは。 も殺せねえような面して過ごんでるところはなんとも可愛いってんだ。
おう、見さまなっちゃいけねえぜ。メール済みは皆当てにくせえ飯を食ってきたんじゃねえ。おう、こう見えても俺様はな、捕まりゃ貼り付け間違いなしの落とすでなんだぜ。
俺だってよ、いずれ探し首だ。自慢じゃねえが悪いことでやってねえことは一つもねえんだ。じゃあ叩き切られても文句はねえな。
なんだと、切るのなら切ってくれ。
切られりゃ痛えぞ。
刃物は怖くてやるから務まらね
まったくバカにつける癖がねえな。
え。何？
いや、顔毛2つ。いや、多分3つだ。
And that was Toshiro Mifune. once
Being
again,
pretty
being
hardcore.
awesome. Kurosawa went on to make a couple more Yojimbo movies, but then ended up having to sell the rights to Yojimbo back to Toho Studios later in his life for reasons. His last movie he made with Toho Studios was Redbeard. His contract was up with Toho. He really wanted to start getting into international cinema. This film's considered one of his best in Japan. I thought it was okay. I didn't put a clip in it. And in general, the opinion of the West is that it's okay. This was his last film featuring Toshiro Mifune. The reasons behind Mifune's fallout with Kurosawa,
They're pretty wildly speculated on.
yeah,
there's theories.
there's a lot of theories. No one actually knows the entire reason why. There are some things such as Kurosawa getting tired of doing samurai films. Mifune, now for this film you'll see Mifune has a full beard. At the time, actors got paid almost nothing. So they would often do many films at once. But Kurosawa insisted Mifune grow a full beard for this movie, so he essentially couldn't do any films at the same time. Accused Kurosawa of trying to monopolize him. But they never made another film together. Mifune, like I said earlier, went on to do foreign films. He graduated from samurai epics into doing World War II epics. He did Shogun in the U.S.,
Hell in the Pacific.
Hell in the Pacific,
Challenge.
and one notorious film called Incheon, starring Toshiro Mifune, which is notoriously considered one of the absolute worst films ever made.
Red Sun's pretty good though.
Red Sun was pretty
The
good.
cowboy samurai movie.
But after Redbeard,
We're moving into the
Kurosawa
dark
kind
ages.
of, yeah, this is by far the lowest period in Kurosawa's life. After he left Toho, he started facing increasing competition from television, becoming the dominant medium for entertainment. Change in attitudes in Japan. Samurai films were considered cheesy, old-fashioned. We're focusing on the future now. And he lost a lot of his reputation. The first thing he went on to do was this disaster. Tora 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 was conceived by, I want to say 20th Century Fox. It was going to be a retelling of Pearl Harbor. Half the movie was going to be from the American side and half was going to be from the Japanese side. Kurosawa was picked to write and direct the Japanese side.
And he wrote about 4 hours worth of
He wrote
material.
about 4 hours worth of script, as Kurosawa is wont to do. Spent 2 years working with 20th Century Fox on pre-production. Then when production actually started, the first thing they did was cut this 4-hour script down to 90 minutes And then when he actually began working with people,
Yeah, the Americans thought his attitudes and his eccentricities, he was just so bizarre that they genuinely thought he was going senile. They thought he was nuts.
his directing methods being as extremely eccentric as they were, there were actual memos circulating around 20th Century Fox saying that, well, this man must be going absolutely insane and senile.
Thankfully, we're not showing anything from this one.
Yeah, it was an okay movie, but Kurosawa was, after working on it for 2 years, was fired after only 2 weeks of filming. This was his first failure, essentially. And he lost a lot of his reputation in Japan because of it. And because of it, he could receive almost no funding from anyone. No one wanted to touch him. He finally managed to scrape together enough funding to make another one of the worst movies he's ever made. Dodeshiken, which incidentally, that's in Japanese the sound a train makes. On the plus side, it was Kurosawa's first color film.
And it looks gorgeous.
He proved himself to be just as much of a master of color photography as he was a master of black and white. The downsides were everything else.
Yeah, the plot, the acting.
Nothing makes sense. It's not a good movie. And the 1-2 punch of Tora 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 and Dodeshiken absolutely crippled Kurosawa to the point where after Dodeshiken failed, he actually attempted suicide. In 1971, cut his wrists, was found by, I think, his wife.
Yeah.
Luckily survived, but essentially at this point everyone assumed his career was over and he would never make another film. He retired into obscurity.
He was actually picked up by...
but about 5 years later, he was contacted by, of all people, the Soviet government to direct a movie called Judo Saga. Kurosawa took the job. He was kind of happy someone still remembered him. It's an okay film. We have a clip of it, but do we have time?
How's our time going? If you want me
We've
to
got
skip
15 minutes. I think we're going to skip this one, just because it's not that good of a movie.
And also because
we got about
Windows
15 minutes
8
left.
destroyed the footage.
And also
Windows 8.
he filmed it in a really weird aspect ratio, so the clip is kind of screwed up because Windows 8. But this film, of all the things that Kurosawa did up to now, this was the first film that earned him an Oscar. But after this, he once again retired into obscurity up until the 1980s. Now, around this time in the United States, the new Hollywood wave, I think they called it, was coming along. You had new directors like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, all of who had grown up watching Kurosawa's movies and idolizing Kurosawa's movies. They kind of got together, asked, what's he doing now? Because you couldn't just look it up on the internet back then. Found out that he had made one movie in 10 years, was largely disrespected in his own land, and could get no funding. And they're like, we need to do something about this. So Steven Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola went to Fox and Toho and essentially paid for this movie themselves, Kagemusha. It's a good movie. We don't have a clip of it. Not Kurosawa's best, but it was his first samurai epic shot in color, so it's gorgeous. But Kurosawa called this movie his dress rehearsal for his next film, which was his final epic, and that's wrong.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite on the list because it is mind-blowing. It is huge, epic, the colors are amazing. It's basically kind of a retelling of King Lear it ended up as.
Yeah, someone had said, he wrote this screenplay, he'd spent like 3 years writing it. Someone read it and said, hey, you essentially rewrote King Lear. And he was like, huh? So he rewrote it into a full remake of King Lear. And this is the clip where you'll really finally get to see some of Kurosawa's gorgeous use of color.
And just to let you know, on the set, they actually built and burned down
this building that he's in right now, they actually built it and then burned it down. Because Kurosawa. was no dialogue in that clip. You'll know, I mean, even going back to Sugata Sanshiro, Kurosawa has always been really good at showing instead of telling. He does a lot, even sans dialogue, and can show a lot on the screen. In fact, he's so good at it that cutting his work down to 1 hour panel size clips can be kind of difficult. Editing Kurosawa is very difficult because the guy he did all his own editing and he was a master at it. And it kind of feels like, you know, cutting
like you're messing it up.
Yeah. So rest assured that if you saw anything in this presentation that was
of
awkward
wonky,
or looked bad or wonky, rest assured it was probably me. Watch the movie. Now after Ron, he didn't do much.
Well, he was kind of getting older.
By the time he did Dreams, he was 80 years old. Steven Spielberg produced this one, financed it. Sony still owns it.
It is very different from all of his other films.
It's not so much a movie as there's like 7 or 8
short films.
Short 20 to 30 minute films condensed into a single DVD essentially.
And most of them are very fantastical, very surreal, very weird.
Kurosawa claimed that these were based on his dreams. There's a lot of speculation that most of these are movies he had started writing but never really finished. We do have this is never going to show up on one of his best pictures lists, but
it's interesting.
It's a gorgeous movie, and it's definitely worth a watch.
Bonjour. Savez-vous où habite Monsieur Van Gogh?
Si c'est lui que vous cherchez, il a passé le pont tout à l'heure. Il est allé par là-bas.
Merci.
Monsieur, prenez garde. Il vient juste de sortir de l'asile des fous.
Akira Kurosawa movies, huh? Akira Kurosawa.
Vous êtes Vincent Van Gogh, n'est-ce pas?
Now, the guy playing Van Gogh is legendary director Martin Scorsese.
Unfortunately, he's not really a legendary actor.
He's not really legendary.
Why aren't you painting? To me, this scene is beyond belief. A scene that looks like a painting does not make a painting. If you take the time and look closely, all of nature has its own beauty. When that natural beauty is there, I just lose myself in it. And then, as if it's in a dream, the scene just paints itself for me. Yes, I consume this natural setting. I devour it completely and whole. And then when I'm through, the picture appears before me complete. The sun. It compels me to paint. I can't stand here wasting my time talking to you.
And to race through the last couple minutes of panel, after Dreams He Did Maridayo,
Which
was his final film at the age of 83.
And it literally means not yet.
It means not yet. He was kind of happy his reputation was coming back. He was getting to make films again. He made a film called Not Yet, and then hurt his spine, wound up spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. He had always said he wanted to die while filming a movie. Sadly, that couldn't happen. He finally died of a stroke in 1998. As for his legacy, pick a director. Just about every director in modern times has
Something to say
drawn
about
something
it.
from Kurosawa, or drawn something from Kurosawa, because now we're into like Kurosawa's spiritual grandkids when it comes to
Soulception.
Soulception, yes. The Kurosawa production company still exists in Japan. It's currently run by Kurosawa's son. Now, up until it's fairly recent that, Japan finally re-embraced Kurosawa. There's now the Akira Kurosawa Foundation Annual Film Festival. Anaheim University named their school of film after him. There are two film festivals, the Tokyo International Film Festival and the San Francisco Film Festival, which offer Akira Kurosawa Lifetime Achievement Awards. In 2008, Japan started the AK-100 project, which aimed to introduce Kurosawa to a younger generation and met with moderate success. And that's our ending. A quote from Akira Kurosawa, the man himself. The film is never really good unless the camera is in the eye of the poet. And that's it. Thank you for coming. If you like this, be sure to see the rest of our panels. At 8 o'clock tonight, we are doing
hilarious hentai dubs.
Hentai dubs in this room.
Tomorrow we're going to be doing Tunes That Go Bump in the Night. And then Sunday morning we'll be doing Nihon Eiga, movies to blow your mind.
If any of you are actually awake at 11 in the morning on Sunday, we will be doing Nihon Eiga, movies to blow your mind. We found a whole bunch of Japanese modern day films that are weird. Your battery. Oh, you need to plug in.
That's fine.
We're
good.
All right, we're good. Thank you.